Okay, let's start. Okay, before starting, I just want to know about this. Can you spot any difference or which one is correctly represented? Can you anyone spot anything here? Which one do you use when you use in an interface? Either the left side one or the right side one?
The left side.
Left
The
side.
one on the left is correct.
Okay, but I say both are correct. Can you justify my answer?
That is true, but as a user, we'd more prefer the one on the left.
Okay, but as a designer or else as a UX perspective, what I say is the left one is used for mostly handheld devices like mobiles or else tablets. But for the right one, we use it on keyboards, calculators. You see, whenever you observed on your keyboard, I mean PC keyboards, you find that zero is actually placed or on the left side or else the right side, not in the middle, because it is not important if we place it in the middle or else anywhere. So that's what I meant with this slide. So I think this comes under actually UX, because UX is completely about the experience. When coming to the phone perspective, you have you hold it with two hands. You must justify every aspect of it. But when it comes to PC, you never care about anything. Yeah, you can reach it from anywhere. That's what. So these both represents are correct, and they are still being used. So let's talk a little bit more about UI. So user interface means it is an media which helps us to interact with a system or else a program or else a software. And it mainly focuses on maximizing, usability, mostly to interact with the system. So, and before, when we see in the past, we have user interface, and nothing is there is no difference between the current user interface we are talking and the user interface we have in 40 years back. Only thing we have currently new is user experience. That is the one which is new. Wait a second. So our purpose of creating an interface is to enhance user experience, exactly. And we have so many things like menu bar and so many navigation bars. These are very helpful to navigate through the different pages in the application or the software, which actually part of UI. These are the part of UI. The navigation gestures you see on Android phone or iPhone, these are the part of UI. And the placement and everything comes under UX, because I will tell you later about that. And yeah, and the last point, UI design brings together concepts from interaction design, visual design, and information design. Interaction design, I already told you, it is an interaction to interact. And visual design, I mean graphical design, to make it much intuitive or innovative, and to make it, uh, you know, to increase the popularity among people about the software or the application. And information design, this is something quite new. Before we used to have buttons as a text, but now we have symbols. Suppose let's see Twitter. Suppose we head to a Twitter. When you go to a page, we at the bottom right we can see some Twitter bird. Twitter bird at the bottom. But when you see on the computer, we see Twitter bird with tweet. And this is where information design comes under. You give information about everything. You will, in exact words, you label everything on the UI. That's what information design is. And that's it. There is not much about UI. And let's talk about UX and some basic understandings of it. So UX, it is a main component when main thing we consider when we are creating a user interface. Suppose it actually is something like psychology about users, how they interact with the product. You know, UX designers actually always thinks about how user thinks about the application, how they wanted to interact with it, and and their perceptions, and how efficient should we have to make the user interface so it makes the user comfortable. So these all comes under UX. And yeah, I already covered this point. So again, there is one aspect of UX where it concentrates on users' perception, and they even interview few users in very big companies, or else there will be some candidate who represents them, and they will always take points like what they want from the legacy apps, means the old versions of the apps. And there are few limitations too. You can't go full onto the US perspective. So so you yeah, this is quite funny, but UX is not UI. Suppose if you want completely UX, you have to sacrifice some aspects of UI. You can't design a complete UI with by following UX, and same goes to UI also. To get innovative or creative UI, you can't use UX. I mean, completely use UX. So let's see a few examples. This is what UI is when ketchup is upset. When ketchup bottle is kept on the table, it's something like it is very good for representing it. But while using it, we actually we will tilt it upside down, right, to get the ketchup to the nozzle of the bottle. So that way UX is it's a simple example of it. And yeah, here you can see the UX completely focus on how useful the interface is, while design completely focuses on how beautiful and aesthetic looks it is. Yeah, imagine like we given this kind of a whole cutlery set which consists of spoons, forks, and knives. And let's say like how many, if I ask you how many knives are there, can anyone count it? Anyone? I mean, out of all this. Hello? Yeah, if I say like oh,
8.
okay, it took some time, right? Let's say now let's say how many knives are there, or how many spoons are there. Or else if someone who is something with OCD, or who want to have a little bit tidiness, they'll do this, right? They'll segregate everything and separate everything. So this is what common sense does when you want to do something about it. And this is what information architecture does. This is what I told about information design before. You going to label everything in the every element of the UI. So here I labeled every cutlery equipment I have with labels. So this is what information architecture does. And the final one, this is what UX does. It doesn't give you all the options we have in the menu, but it gives you the necessary ones, the necessary and most anticipated ones. These only give you the only necessary parts, or the parts which are used quite often. So this is what almost UI, the differences between UI and UX. So let's so so we from the previous slides we have got to know the importance of UX, right? So how to achieve it? So it is actually a process where this loop never ends, like the discover, define, design, validate, develop. This loop never ends. Like it will end there will be iterations, like first iteration, second iteration, and third iterations, and we can observe these iterations as user interface updates, like every they will say like user interface revamp or something like that. So it will never end. You will get to, suppose let's say Facebook in 2014 or 15, the UI looks so old, but now it was actually updated in 2020, I guess. It looks very cool and neat and very minimal. So it is a more than like a revamp, and this is the process they might have followed. So let's go through this. So Discover, it focuses on the company's business requirements, and suppose let's say Facebook, it has so much of experience with how users interact with their application, right? So it considers everything, and they even considers the new requirements from the stakeholders or the users want. So this comes under Discover. And define. Here, from the collected data from the stakeholders' point of view or else the user's point of view, we're going to create some ideas or plans regarding how to implement the next version of the application, like how to prototype. It will come in the next stage, but they plan everything before that. So coming to the design section, here after gathering every information they got to know, they prepared even a strategy or stats about it. So they will actually put it on a paper or else some kind of prototyping tool. This is where our UI comes, and even the UX part of few UX part will become. And this is where it takes months and months to design a new interface. Even Facebook did 1 year of their work for a new revamped version of Facebook. So the next stage is validate. So validate, it is a very important step. Suppose, did you ever heard about beta testing? Anyone? Hello?
Yes, I have heard, bro. I am using Windows 11 through Windows Insider program as a beta tester.
Nice. Even I used to in VMware. So yeah, this is where that beta testing will come. Where prototypes will be built, which are not accessible to everyone. So these prototypes will be shared among those people who have access to it, and they will give you some reviews. The original intent of beta testing is this, where you will test the product and you will give some reviews, and the developers actually few changes as per the reviews. So if it doesn't, suppose let's say someone told me about Windows 11 now, from almost like 3 or 4 weeks back, the taskbar was cracked. It's not working at all. Whenever you are using right click on it, it is crashing the system. So someone reported about it, and within the next version, which is almost 1 day away, they released a new update about it. So that's how beta testing works, and this all comes under validate, the stage validate. And the last one is where almost everything goes, like the prototyping, everything. These will be implemented into the software, like graphical design, coding, and even the hosting the service or product comes under this. And yeah, this is the process, and it goes on in an endless loop. This actually happens for every iteration of the software. Yeah, so that's all about user-centered design process. Now let's go through some UI core principles. Just a second. Yeah, let's go through some UI core principles. So clarity, whenever we are creating an application or an UI interface, one thing you must keep in mind, it should not actually create some ambiguity. Ambiguity means it should not have something in common that confuses the users. So we must not create anything like this. Let's say we have currently, if you have known about Android 12 beta is upon live now. A few developers or else beta testers are using it. Recently, they have some bug like is showing the installed apps over and over again, which causes some ambiguity. So they later fixed it, but yeah, it is some kind of case regarding ambiguity. And these must be okay when you are using the beta services, when you are working on a beta services, but when it comes to a released version or the standard version of it, you must totally uh, deduce it or deduce it. So one thing, and when while giving clarity means you must give him some ease, like suppose let's say, have you ever used Reddit? Anyone? Reddit or Instagram even? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. If you have ever seen, TikTok, for example, you might have seen the bottom navigation bar. You know why it is placed in the bottom navigation bar? Anyone? I mean, the bottom of the screen. Hello. Yes, easy navigation, but why can't we place to the side of the screen if it is very easy? We can't for bigger screens. We can't go to the bottom of the screen, right? We can keep it in as a floating bar, if you floating navigation bar, like we can change wherever we can go. You get my point, right? Yeah. Yeah. But but this case will not be applicable for everything. Whatever I said, because I said before, I told you, right? UI does not, UI is not equals to UX. You have to sacrifice either UX or UI for a better application or better interface. So if I created a floating interface, you when you're watching any content, you might have it might distract you sometimes. So that's why they gave it at a separate section where it always exists. So people will get habituated about it. So they never going to change it from the bottom. So that's all about it. So let's go to the next one. Suppose feedback. Feedback is something like, suppose let's say, if you ever use something like Amazon mobile app. Suppose let's say you don't have internet connection. When you open Amazon app at that time, have you ever seen dogs appearing on the screen? Saying that your internet is not working or the product is not available in the market. Have you ever experienced that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's what is feedback is. Actually, feedback is completely like, it allows the user to know that, helps the user to know that you are facing an error. So suppose let's see, on the screen we have a window, right, with a black background and everything. It is actually saying that it is actually loading. Suppose let's say Facebook uses the same kind of loading thing, where it actually shines when it loads. I think you might have seen in any other apps about this loading state. So in the same way, there are so many, not only loading state, they show errors, success messages. Even if you use Paytm, when a payment is success, they will show you a tick mark right at the end. So these all comes under feedback. And let's go to the next one. Consistency. So let's say you created an app and you want to publish it in every platform like Windows, Apple, Android, and everything. So they are built on different platforms. Like suppose let's say Windows was built on C++, which is a very different platform compared to iOS or else Mac OS. Mac OS is a Linux software, and you can't make the same design choices or same functionalities on the same. But you must. But at the last, you must create an app which actually gives you that consistency. Like everything should be equal in every device. Like Android should have the same interface that you have on web, or else web should have the same interface as you have on Windows. So to that, and what it does is it actually helps you to memorize the UI a little bit. If you use a web app, suppose if you use Facebook on web app, it is very easy for you to interact with it. But when coming to the phone, yeah, because you got habituated to it, you can also navigate in the mobile app also. So that's what consistency is. So to maintain consistency, there will be so many sacrifices will be made, like aspect ratios. The bad application which has a bad reputation with consistency is Instagram. Actually, Instagram doesn't work with every screen aspect ratios. Suppose if you have followed some mobile reviews or something, recently Samsung Fold 3 was launched. Did you ever heard about it? So everyone is talking about that. Every app was optimized to the screen, like the aspect ratio, the layouts, everything. But Instagram still sticking to their old tactics. Like they are not actually optimized for anything. Even the web UI look a little bit like that. It doesn't, covers the whole screen. And these are the bad, aspects about Instagram. And yeah, they lack consistency too. Yeah, use established design patterns. So here, what we have is, suppose let's say, uh, have you ever, if you use Windows, you let's say, let me show you. So in the left side edge, you can see a display of every menu we have in the system in the settings, right? So you have seen on something like nearly equal to this in so many softwares or apps. Why? Because it is so popular and it is so good with the good with the user experience. Like user feel ease with while interacting with this kind of with this kind of designs. So in the same way, we everyone who are working on UI should actually commit to these kind of designs. Like innovation is very important, yes, but you can't sacrifice UX. UX is a main part of actually building a product, because you're building a product for your users, right? So you can't sacrifice what good for the users. So we almost follow all the well established design patterns. Let's say here in the photo we have iPhone's navigation bar in the bottom here, if you can see. So before iPhone implemented it, everyone ditched it. Like in Reddit, they're actually trashing about it. Who does that? It is actually so disgusting. But when Android implemented it, they're like they shocked about it, because Apple actually, after 6 months of releasing it, they asked the people how the UI looks and does it made any changes after releasing the navigation bar. They were like so happy, and it was very used to navigate through apps. Before you had to press a button, window iPhone 7 or 8, we used to have a big button right in the bottom. So it increases the screen real estate a lot. So everyone was happy about it. Later on, this is what well-established design like. Before they might have encountered some criticism, but later people might understand. And Apple was very good with this kind of stuff. They are introduced many well-established design patterns, not only in UI but also in product designing stuff also too. Uh, and they are pioneers in it. And next one, visual hierarchy. This is the main important thing we actually need in UI. Without this, we can't know which one is a button or which one is a heading or which one is a paragraph or whatever it is. So it completely lets you know what is what on the screen and what is in and what is not. Suppose let's say even newspapers also uses this kind of visual hierarchy. Suppose let's say a headline has a bold and strong font size than the original, than the content of it, right? So these kind of things are actually followed in UI too. So let's come with the first one, typography. So typography is something like, this comes under consistent, here we have to follow consistency too. We must have the same typography, or I mean same font all throughout the app. And there are two factors that makes the typography good, which is legibility and readability, which actually is, which I told you, the strong or bold size of font is used for headings, and the normal or else regular one is uh, used for content. Let's say even let's consider this slide. I use a typography text with a bold and very contrasty font, and here I use the content with a regular font, which is because not that important. And newspapers use it very in a very nice manner, because most of the people actually only reads the headings, right? Myself, I do the same. So yeah, this is how typography works. And white space, it is very important. Actually, it is very important, or else you can ruin your design. Let's take the leftmost side. Here, if you consider it alone, it really feels very great. It has, there is nothing that looks this awkward when you compare it with the right side one. But when you consider the right side one, it has the better spacing between the elements, and better letter spacing in between the words, and better color contrast between everything. It feels great when you apply it. So, and again, I think I missed one slide, I guess. It's about colors. Colors actually depends upon the product you are using. Let's say Facebook is for suppose Facebook, it actually stick to dark blue. It actually uses three types of blue in the user interface. Three user interface where they segregate everything in that way. And when it comes to Instagram, they are very good with gradients. Have you ever heard about gradients? Anyone? Hello. Yeah, have you ever heard about gradients, color gradients? Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Instagram mostly uses. Yeah, sure. Wait a second. Or else let's wait. Why to waste time searching? I will show my own. So this is how a gradient look like. Here I blended two colors. A light maroon color with a light purple color. Uh, you know, and I blended it. I mean, not the even here too. If you see, I used a dark purple with a light pink with a very light purple. So this is how gradients look like, and these are actually depends upon what how the companies want. Like suppose Instagram actually stick to these kind of colors from the beginning itself. Suppose let's say Windows. Windows, it has these legacy colors like red, green, blue, and black. They are still using in some of the apps and stuff. Recently, they're changing with Windows 11, yes. But yeah, this is how it works. And that's it, guys. These are the core UI principles. And yeah, thank you. And do you have any questions for me? Anyone? Yeah. I think I started designing when I used templates, because I don't say you should not you should rely on templates. When they are creating, I have this kind of perception like when they are creating, why should I should not. So I started that way, and I really liked those templates. But one thing, if you're really into UI or UX part of stuff, you must completely start doing it. It doesn't come as you want in the first time, but with experience and with by getting some inspirations from so many websites. Let me show you a few websites actually. Suppose let's say these are few of my inspirations actually. Suppose Apple, it is a very simple one that Apple designed. Very simple one. They created a video about Apple AirPods, and they kept it on the background. And when you scroll through it, let's see how it changes. It's like you're watching a video. I'm just scrolling through it now, and this is how it's actually happening. So what are they doing is they are playing a video, and they are using a kind of I think Vue.js. I think it's a part of JavaScript, and on that they created a layer, and these layer is the things which we are text. The battery, charge wireless, use stylus, these kind of stuff. These are on that layer, and they are just showing you the content of it on these layers. That's it. Very simple but very intuitive. And another one is Adobe XD. It is actually a tool which is used for creating uh, user interfaces. Let's see how they designed their website actually. And if you observe, I think you may not, but from my observations, I felt like they use some kind of bait to scroll deep down. If you see the window they are using here, it is actually displaying only a portion of it, not completely. So you're thinking like, okay, let's scroll it and see the full window. But instead, you are seeing some cool animations that they are showing off, which is quite intuitive, and they're you are getting to know their product very well after doing this. So this is a kind of a UX gimmick, I would say, to lure the people. Yeah, it's a kind of a business strategy, I would like to say. Yeah, and this is another one. It is very simple one too, but implemented very well. Yes, this is it. It is completely depend upon what you encounter when you're doing it. So that's what this is the whole experience of mine. So is there any? Yeah. Yes, man. Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
What,
Voice is
what is the question again?
voice is
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, man. Listen. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It completely depends. Yeah. 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 Continue. Okay. Yeah. It completely depends upon the exposure you got from the institute, not from the institute. Suppose I was into UX or UI from almost from the beginning of engineering. This is first happened when I created a presentation for some English class. It happened in 2 days. Then after I was like, okay, I'm being creative with it, so let's explore it. So I used almost like 3 days. I completely explored Microsoft PowerPoint. So I was like, okay. And before that, I'm seeing so many presentations or so many. I used to have a phone with me, and I'm seeing so many apps which has great interfaces. I was like, how they're creating it, man. uh, how they are doing. I just want to do it myself. And I just got to know like there is some kind of things like UI, and you can create it with some kind of tools, and they are implemented as a code or with some background functionalities in the software. So I was like, okay, let's implement this. Let's do this. So the first step I took was PowerPoint. Actually, I used it in my English class, and but the saddest part is I never got to present it in the English class. So yeah, and exposure plays a very good role in it. And suppose let's say after getting to know about UI, I used to search for things which have good content about it, and I came across a website called Dribble. Let me share my screen. So are you seeing my screen right? So here, this is the magic here. Dribble has so many, very aesthetic looking or futuristic kind of UI stuff. I was really pleased after seeing all this stuff, and I want to try it myself. So this is what my journey is. And one thing, there is a disclaimer before starting this thing. Following Dribble, everything in it was not actually applicable in a real world. I mean, real software or business prototypes, because they looks great, but they can't be uploaded because the user experience will be ruined because of few things. I don't see any kind of user, any interfaces, but I have came across few things in the past. So yeah, but these will be very good inspirations if you are trying to look forward into UI or UX design. So yeah, and main thing, after starting, one thing you must maintain is determination and perseverance. Perseverance means you must be consistent with what you are doing. uh, I'm not consistent by doing it, but I'm consistent by watching it. So I'm getting inspiration anyway. You know, this is how my brain works.